Hello everyone, my name is Rocky. Welcome to a very special episode on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be bringing you an interview with Mr. Brad Taylor, who was a former sales and marketing executive at the Coca-Cola Company. So literally one of the top positions in the corporate marketing ladder at one of the most prestigious and well-regarded companies in the entire world. Today he's going to be giving you guys some insights into brand strategy, how you guys can go about building a brand, maintaining it, and then leveraging it to increase revenue and profits into your own businesses. If you guys don't already know me, I'm an agency owner, an aspiring entrepreneur, like many of you guys. So this YouTube channel is going to be just as much of a learning process for me as it is for you guys. I hope to provide as much unfiltered, no BS content on this channel as I can. So without further delay, let's get right on into the interview. Hello everyone, welcome to a very special lesson on the MZM Masterclass. I'm your host Rocky, and today we're joined by Mr. Brad Taylor, a former Coca-Cola marketing executive, now independent marketing consultant, and my former professor. Mr. Taylor, would you like to introduce yourself for the audience?
Sure. Thank you, Rocky. Yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, again, my name is Brad Taylor. I live down here in Roswell, Georgia, which is just north of Atlanta. I spent, I've got a career background, 35 plus years, sales and marketing. With the last 24 years of my career, I spent at the Coca-Cola Company in a variety of sales and marketing leadership roles. And now I'm kind of semi-retired, and I'm a part-time college professor at Emory University, which is where I first met Rocky, and also at Kennesaw State University here in the Atlanta area. And I teach various sales and marketing classes. So that's me.
All right, perfect. So for the people listening in, today's lesson will be all about brand strategy. So basically, defining a brand, building it, maintaining it, and some common mistakes people might make when going about that. But before we start, Mr. Taylor, would you like to go more in depth about what you did for Coca-Cola?
Yeah, so I started back in way back. I guess I'll give away my age here. I started at Coca-Cola in 1994. Started as a senior customer marketing manager. And what is that? That is, think of that as a marketing consultant. I had a portfolio of customers, so restaurant chains, grocery stores, other retail stores, movie theaters, theme parks, et cetera, that sell Coca-Cola products to the end consumer. My job as a senior customer marketing manager was to consult with those uh, customers to help them identify ways to sell more Coca-Cola products to their end consumer. I did that for a number of years. Then I managed the Coca-Cola's global relationship with the Walt Disney Company. So everything that Coca-Cola does with Walt Disney, so theme parks, movies, ESPN, ABC, all the Disney divisions. Coca-Cola has a global partnership with Disney, and my job was to manage that relationship and make good things happen. So I did that for almost 11 years of my career. And then I migrated into more of a sales leadership role. So I led a national sales organization. So a variety of kind of marketing um, and sales leadership roles inside the company.
Yeah, so as you guys can tell, Mr. Taylor is very seasoned, very knowledgeable on this subject. So, Mr.
Seasoned, yeah,
Taylor,
that's it. That's a
yeah.
good. That's another way for saying he's old, but I don't
So
feel
I
old.
don't know. I don't know about that, but
Let's go
I'll
with
I'll
seasoned.
I'll let you take it away, and I'll pop in here and there with comments and questions. But for the most part, the time is yours, Mr. Taylor.
All right, so I think I'm sharing my screen. Can you see that?
Yeah, yeah,
All right,
perfect.
so Rocky asked me to talk about one of the topics that is really near and dear to my heart, and this idea of developing brand strategy. And I've seen, obviously, I learned a lot about brand strategy working at the Coca-Cola Company because clearly they have one of the strongest brands on the planet in Coca-Cola. So it is something that I've learned a lot about, but it's something I'm very passionate about because Without a solid brand strategy, it's hard for any marketing campaign to be effective, right? And so I've seen so many times where entrepreneurs, small businesses, or even larger businesses, they'll jump right into marketing execution without having done the pre-work, which is about developing a brand strategy, which should inform everything you're doing from a marketing perspective. So that's why I just think this is where it has to start. And so that's why I'm very passionate about. And so I'm going to kind of share the typical lecture that I share in my brand strategy class that I teach. And it really is these four questions. When you think about developing a brand strategy, it's got to start with understanding these four things. First and foremost, what is your brand's core strength, right? So what is your brand all about? And I talk a lot about brands typically fall into one of four categories. They're either product led, which means it's really all about the product. And we'll get into a little bit more on each one of these, or it's brand story led. I think about Nike, I think about Coca-Cola, I think about Apple when I think about brand story led brands. And what we mean by that is there's just something bigger at play than the product itself. There's a brand story at play. Our brands can be experience-led brands where it's really all about the experience and it's about the people that are delivering that experience. Or there are certainly brands that are price-led brands. Walmart would be a perfect example of that. So the first question you've got to answer is, what kind of brand am I, right? The second question, how tight is the bond with consumers? Now, for a lot of entrepreneurs, startup businesses, they're going to start as unknown, right? And so the job is to become known. But then over time, as you can see on kind of this journey, brands go from being unknown to maybe they're known, but they're indifferent, which means consumers can't really point to what makes your brand different, better, or more special than the next brand. Hopefully you move into the phase where consumers have tried your brand, they've bought it a couple of times, they like it. And then the more they buy it, the more trust they establish with you, it turns into love. And then ultimately where you want to be, where any brand wants to be, is to become a beloved brand. So we talk about understanding where are you on that journey with consumers. The third question, what is your competitive situation? And the thing that I like to point out here is every single brand on the planet has competition. It may not be direct competition, but you are competing for consumers' time, energy, and money, no matter what category you're in. And if you're a brand, the only brand in your category, you still have competition with all the other categories out there that consumers are spending their time, money, and energy on. So it's important to understand what consumers want, what does your brand do best, and then what does your competition do best. So you need to understand that, answer that question. And then lastly, what is your current business situation? And we talk about brand health, which is all about how consumers are perceiving your brand. And then we talk about brand wealth, which is kind of the numbers, sales, profit, growth, stock price, et cetera. So these four questions are kind of the fundamental questions that we need to answer to begin developing a brand strategy.
Yeah, so but sorry, before you
go ahead.
start, could you explain a little bit about what exactly is a brand for the people in the audience?
Yeah, sure. A brand. So think about, so there are lots of products and services out there, right? But those aren't brands. Brands are built in the minds of consumers. So a brand is how consumers perceive your product or service. And I like this. One of my favorite sayings is, products are built in factories, brands are built in the minds of consumers, right? So a brand is simply how you are perceived by consumers, right? Now, also, and Rocky will remember this, we talk a lot about our personal brands, which is also your personal brand. Think of it this way: your personal brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. How do they perceive you as a person? So it's the same idea. How do consumers perceive products and services? And then how do they perceive you as an individual? So it's all about perception.
Exactly, exactly. Couldn't be well better said. All right, you can move on now.
Yeah, so let's dive a little bit deeper into kind of how do you build your brand around your core strength, right? So again, that's the first question. And we start with this idea of product-led brands, right? So product-led brands, when you think about it, it's all about the product. And I've got some examples here on the screen. So Tide is a great example of a product-led brand where, and Rolex the same, Google, Samsung. Think about it. It's about the product. And these brands, they continue to invest in innovation to make sure that their product is superior versus competitive products in the marketplace, right? So again, if you believe that you're a product-led brand, hopefully you've got a significant point of difference versus your competition so that you can be perceived as superior to your other brands. But then you need to continue to focus on innovation, invest in innovation to make sure your product stays above and beyond the competition. And then from a communication perspective, you typically directly call attention to the superiority and differences in your product versus the competition. Maybe you use product reviews and key influencers to support the brand. Again, what makes your product different, better, more special than the competition? And it's from a selling perspective, it's more of a rational sell because again, you're pointing out precisely what makes your product different, better, more special than the next guy. So that kind of sums up the idea of product-led brands. Now, the next arena for brands could be brand story-led brands. And look at the examples that I've got here. Coca-Cola, Disney, Apple, Nike, Tesla, Dove. Those are all really, really strong brand story-led brands. And what we mean by that is they focus on building a brand idea that connects quickly with a core group of very motivated consumers. And everything that they do kind of lines up under that story. So we think about Disney's story is all about magic, right? And so that brand, if you had to assign one word to Disney, certainly from a Disney theme park perspective, it would be magic. Think about Apple. The one word that sums up Apple and the whole brand idea and the whole story with Apple is actually three words. It's simplicity, it's humanity, and it's creativity, right? So that's kind of the story at play with Apple. You think about Nike, and yeah, their slogan is just do it, but Nike's brand idea and their story is there's an athlete in every single one of us. And Nike wants you to just pursue your dreams no matter what they are or how crazy they may be. And you think about the Nike advertising that you see. Some of the best advertising that's ever been created. Never, ever, ever, ever do they talk about their products. They talk about the bigger idea, the bigger story that's at play there. Same thing with Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola's brand idea, a story is all about, again, three words, happiness or three ideas, happiness, optimism, and bringing people together. And again, Coca-Cola's advertising, they don't talk about the product because most everyone knows what Coca-Cola is. They bring to life this idea of happiness, optimism, and bringing people together. So again, brand story-led brands, they have something bigger at play than just the product. Now, they have to have a very solid product, but it's more of an emotional communication, right? Tapping into the emotions of consumers. And in most cases, brand story-led brands, and think about these brands and other brands that may come to your mind. In most cases, brand story-led brands are the most profitable brands on the planet because, again, there's something much bigger at play than just the product. Um, brand story-led brands. Next, we have experience-led brands. Now, what an experience-led brand, again, it's about the brand purpose. Why do you do what you do? What are your brand values that inspire and guide the team leadership and the service behaviors of your people? So experience-led brands, again, it's all about the people that are delivering the experience to the end consumer. So you've got to focus on obviously building a culture and an organization with just the right people who can deliver those incredible experiences. Big investments in training to make sure that, again, you're hiring just the right people and you're training those people to deliver the wow experiences. And then from a marketing communications perspective, it's more of a slow build. It's more about enabling consumers to experience your experience for themselves, and then they become your cheerleader, so to speak. So you look at some of these examples. So Starbucks is one of my favorite examples. Well, Chick-fil-A is my all-time favorite example. And I recognize some people up in the Northeast may not know Chick-fil-A. I think Rocky now knows a lot about Chick-fil-A.
Of course, of course.
Chick-fil-A is an incredible example of an experience-led brand that happens to serve a very delicious portfolio of food. But it's the experience that has separated Chick-fil-A from all of their competitors. I think I'll get this right. So Chick-fil-A, an average Chick-fil-A restaurant, so one unit makes more money than McDonald's, Starbucks, and Subway units combined, right? And Chick-fil-A is only open 6 days a week. They're never open on Sunday. That is a testament to the strength of that brand, which is, again, it's all about the experience. And they invest heavily in finding, training just the right people to deliver that experience to consumers. Starbucks, similar, right? The Starbucks experience, and Starbucks has, a great product or products, beverages, and other food items. But you think about Starbucks, it's really about the experience that their people deliver, which really sets them apart from competitors like Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's. Think about Amazon experience-led brand. Think about Airbnb. Certainly Disney Parks and Resorts. While Disney at large is kind of a brand story-led brand, you could argue that Disney theme parks are very much an experience-led brand. So hopefully you get the idea. Experience-led brands, it's all about the culture. It's all about the people. It's all about the purpose. Why do you do what you do, right? And then lastly, there are price-led brands, right? And if you have kind of decided you want to be a price-led brand, hopefully you've done all of your homework and you've negotiated so that you have the lowest possible cost structure, and you're driving efficiencies to ensure that cost structure and to maintain that cost structure. Because if you're a price-led brand, your margins are going to be paper thin, right? And so you've got to make that up with lots and lots of sales. And call to action marketing. And so there's no better example of a price-led brand than Walmart. Walmart has done all of this. They have negotiated. They've got significant brand power so that they win those negotiations. They're driving efficiencies. I think a key point I'd like to bring out about Walmart, because of their payment terms with their suppliers, Walmart will actually sell all of the merchandise before they even pay for the merchandise that they bought from their suppliers. That is brand power. That is what enables them to be a price-led brand, and it's everyday low prices. So again, price-led brands about driving efficiencies, having the lowest cost structure, and using call to action marketing to keep those high sales turns. So again, first question is, are you product led? And are you really investing in innovation to have a superior product? Are you brand story led, where it's more about kind of the brand idea, something much bigger than the product at play? Are you experience led brand, where it's about the culture and the people delivering experience? Or are you a price led brand? So that's question number one. So let me pause there. Rocky, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that sounds amazing. So basically, before small businesses think about marketing, they need to identify what is it in their core values of their own brand before they start trying to portray that to the rest of the world.
Yeah, because that's obviously going to have a huge impact on what your marketing strategy is going to be. You've got to understand what kind of brand are we, right? So that's the first question. The second question is, how do you build your brand around your position with the consumer? So where are you? Um, and I like to, for some brands, maybe they don't know where they are yet. And so these are some of the analytics that you can look at to kind of understand, are you at the indifferent stage, or maybe you're liked, loved, or maybe you're actually beloved? And there's a couple of different metrics that you can look at there. So voice of the consumer. What are consumers saying about your brand? If they have no opinion, there's low interest, no importance, they don't care about your brand, they've never bought your brand. If that's what you're hearing from consumers, chances are you're in the indifferent stage, or maybe you're completely unknown. Um, but you can also look at some market indicators. If there's a skinny brand funnel, which means not many people are aware of you, and those that are consider purchase, repeat, loyal, just kind of keep going down. If that's skinny all the way down, chances are you're at the indifferent stage. Now, maybe you're hearing that consumers have a basic idea of what your brand stands for, but they have no emotional connection. Maybe they see your brand as just ordinary, not really any different than the competitors. But yeah, they bought it, but they don't really have a strong, opinion. Maybe you're liked, right? And what we see in the brand funnel here, you can see there's a higher amount of people that are aware and have considered purchasing, but the repeat purchase and loyal purchase, it gets really skinny there. So maybe that's what you're seeing, and you could kind of classify yourself as a liked brand. And this will make more sense as we get into this, when we talk about what are the marketing strategies depending on where you are with consumers. Now, maybe your consumers are saying that they see your brand as better. They have a high satisfaction level with your brand. There's a high level of loyalty. They frequently buy your brand. Maybe they are willing to recommend your brand to others. Then chances are really good that you are a loved brand. And what the brand funnel may look like, you can see it's kind of wider all the way from the top to the bottom. So if you're seeing that, if you've got healthy brand tracking scores, maybe you're seeing recent market share gains, you're meeting a high share of consumer requirements, then chances are good that you're a loved brand. But where every brand really should aspire to be is a beloved brand, where you have outspoken fans who believe everything about the brand, the product, experience, service is better than the alternatives. And market indicators of a beloved brand, you would have a dominant share. You would have the highest net promoter scores, high usage frequency and recommendations, and certainly high growth and profits. So again, the second question is understand, where are you on that journey with consumers, by listening to consumers and looking at some of these market indicators. Now, so what do you do based on where you are? Well, here's kind of 20 different strategies for your brand, depending on where you are on that journey with consumers. So if you're unknown, a brand new brand in the marketplace, obviously job number one is to get noticed. And so you need to do a setup event, a launch event. You've got to really focus on what is your core message, and you've got to go find some fans. So those consumers, your core target consumers, find find some of those consumers and do everything you can to get them to buy your brand, have conversations with them, engage with them, so that you're turning them those consumers into fans, and they will help you recruit even more consumers. Now, if you're in the indifferent stage, so again, this is where consumers are aware of you, but they don't understand what makes your brand different, better, or more special versus the competition. So this is all about uh, um, tapping into the minds of consumers, getting them to perceive your brand as different, better, or more special. Um, so it's really about establishing the brand positioning in the consumer's mind. Now, if you're liked, so you've already got kind of a trusted, or you've got a set of consumers who are buying you frequently, you want to kind of turn that into a trusted following. You want to drive more penetration with those consumers. You want to drive more usage. You want to build routines. You want to cross sell if you have multiple products. So this is all about driving more purchase, right? And turning those liked fans into more loyal fans who absolutely love you. Now, a great tactic, if you're a liked brand, is a frequency loyalty program. Like, and you see, lots of, like Chick-fil-A does this, Starbucks does this. And that's the reason they do it. They want to keep those consumers coming back and back and back more frequently. And so they're turning them into loyal fans of your brand. So that's a great tactic if you're in the like stage and you're trying to drive more penetration and purchase. Now, if you're loved already, then you just want to tighten that bond with your most loyal brand lovers. This is where you start to tug on the heartstrings of those consumers, get them to fall more deeply in love with you. So about building memories, real again, kind of tugging on the heartstrings of those consumers. And then if you're beloved, that's all about turning those beloved, those fans who absolutely love you, turning those into influencers, getting them to recruit the next set of consumers for you. So hopefully you can see, I mean, these are the strategies that kind of foot up to each one of these places on that journey with consumers. Does that make sense, Rocky?
Of course. And one point that I'd like to make is a lot of small business owners, they think, oh, I need to get so many people to from that awareness to that attention to that purchase to that loyalty. But in reality, it's not exactly right. I think the statistic is like 20% of consumers make up 80% of a business's revenue. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
it's better if you have that really dedicated, beloved group of consumers.
that's a great point, Rocky. Yeah, start small, right? Find that core consumer target who's going to be most motivated by your brand's promise. Find those people, talk with those people, convince them to buy your brand. And then, as I said earlier, engage with them, right? Turn them into influencers, and they will help you grow your business. But that's so critically important. Start with that small base of core target consumer. So we talked about what kind of brand are we? Talked about where are we on that journey with consumers. Now we also have to understand where are you in relation to your competition, right? So how to win the competitive battle for your consumer's heart. This is one of my favorite Venn diagrams, this idea of understanding what consumers want and what your brand does best. If you understand those two things and your brand best delivers against what consumers want, then you're going to be in the winning zone. Now, but there is this thing called competition, right? And so sometimes it may be that you understand what consumers want, but unfortunately, your competitor may do a better job of delivering against what consumers want. If that's the case, you may find yourself in that losing zone, right? Or maybe that what your brand does best, unfortunately, consumers don't want at all, which we kind of call the dumb zone. probably need to find another business to be in, because if consumers don't have a want or need for what you're offering, no amount of marketing is going to change that. Now, in most cases, where brands find themselves is in the risky zone, which is they understand what consumers want, they do a good job of delivering what consumers want, but the competition does about the same job as well. So if you're in the risky zone, you've got to find a way to make consumers perceive that your brand is different, better, or more special. So I'd like to talk about power players, and these are the brands that know what consumers want and they deliver against what consumers want better than anyone else. Google is a perfect example of a power player that dominates the win and a tie. But some of you may remember BlackBerry. BlackBerry used to be a power player until this thing called Apple showed up on the scene. And unfortunately, BlackBerry didn't recognize the threat that Apple actually presented for their brand, and then they are now out of the mobile communications business as a result of that. So again, power players is where every brand should strive to be, because you're delivering against what consumers want better than the competition, and in often cases you're doing so with a premium price and you're making more money. Now, challenger brands, these are brands that kind of set themselves up outside of what consumers want, and set them up as kind of the best solution. So challenger meaning they're challenging the status quo, right? And they're actually repositioning the power player into the dumb zone, and actually turning their strengths into a perceived weakness amongst consumers. So two good examples of challenger brands: Pepsi. Obviously, I'm unbiased. I'm a Coca-Cola person, but Pepsi's always been number two to Coca-Cola, and Pepsi's always challenged or tried to challenge Coca-Cola, and they actually did so quite successfully back in the late 70s with the Pepsi the challenge, the taste challenge. But another example of a challenger brand is McDonald's, who actually challenged Starbucks, right? And saying $4 is dumb. Spending $4 on a cup of coffee is dumb when you can go into McDonald's and get a great tasting cup of coffee for under $2, right? So this idea of repositioning the power player kind of into that dumb zone and amplifying what your brand does best by, best to those that may be frustrated by the power player. So those are challengers. And again, the Pepsi challenge and McDonald's attack Starbucks are great examples there. Now, it could be that you're kind of a disruptor, right? A disruptor brands who are game changing. They alone are pulling consumers away from competitors. They take on a game changing stance to jolt the market so that only their brand satisfies the changing consumer needs, and they push the mass competitors away, making them feel out of touch with consumers. Three great examples there. Apple with their iTunes and iPod totally changed the music industry. Uber disrupted the entire taxi industry, and then Dollar Shave Club disrupted the entire shaving category. So game-changing disruptors. Or it may be that you're a craft brand, and this is the idea of better to be loved by a few. So craft brands on a small space with a highly engaged target that's far enough away from major competitors, so they're not really in price competition with competitors, because they have identified this is our core consumer target, a very small engaged consumer target that we're going to win with. And they avoid trying to compete directly with the market leaders. In-N-Out Burger is a great example of a brand that is beloved on the West Coast that does not perceive themselves to be in competition with any of the big burger chains, right? So this is actually a great place for small businesses and entrepreneurs to start as a craft brand. Again, find that small core consumer target, engage with them, get them buying and loving your brand, and that's going to help you build your business. So you got to understand where you are relative to your competition. And then the last question certainly is, how do you address your brand situation before your next move? And typically brands are going to find themselves in one of these buckets. They're either going to be a startup, or maybe they've been around for a while, but things aren't going great. Or maybe there's a couple of different directions they could go in. So they kind of find themselves in a situation where they need to realign the organization. Maybe things aren't good at all and you've got to fix something, right? Or maybe things are great and you just want to keep it going, right? So there's different strategies that would be at play depending on where you are. Now, if things are great, you want to keep it going, just want to fuel the momentum, right? And so, if you've got steady sales growth, high levels of profit, a very strong share position, and there's no looming competitive threat, then if you're seeing all those things, then you've got some momentum and you want to fuel that. You want to continue to fuel the growth driver. So understand what it is that's driving your growth, but you also want to attack yourself. Stay vigilant. Close any small gaps that may exist. You want to attack yourself before your competitors start to attack you. And then from a leadership perspective, this, motivational leadership style that keeps everyone inspired, aligned, and focused. So if things are great, you don't just pat yourself on the back and go on vacation. You've got to keep working, right? Keep attacking yourself and keep motivating your team to go above and beyond. Now, again, if things are not going great, maybe poor external results, maybe you're seeing declining sales, shrinking profitability, you're losing share, you're losing competitive battles. If you're seeing those things, you're in a mode where you've got to fix it, right? And the strategy there, first and foremost, you want to do something to get some quick wins. So, and maybe maybe you do need to drop your price for a period of time to get some quick wins while you are understanding what the bigger issue, the underlying issue is. And then you want to spend the right amount of time and money to fix those issues. Could be more innovation, could be more and better communication. So you want to do something to stop the bleeding while you're fixing the bigger issues that are at play. And then from a leadership style, this is where it's one of transformation. You've got to transform, you've got to challenge everything and everyone in your organization. Again, understand what the underlying issues are, and then challenge your team to fix those issues. Now, if you're maybe you've got a couple of different internal silos, maybe the sales organization has a different idea of what should happen versus the marketing organization. That happens often, actually. So you could have a couple of different silos, and there's conflict over what action should we take. Maybe there's confused messages inside your organization. So the strategy there is you've got to realign the team by employing a cross-functional team to build a new brand positioning or an organizing brand idea and a brand plan to make sure you can get everyone on the same page with a shared vision, purpose, values, strategies, and execution. So again, it's about realigning the teams and getting everyone on the same page. The leadership style there is one of participative, bringing everyone together, listening to all points of view, and then unifying all those points of view under a shared plan. So if you're kind of seeing those things, you probably need to realign. And then certainly startup, which applies to, I think, the majority of the audience here. New product, maybe it's yet to launch in the marketplace, or it's a new segment in the market. The strategy there, I love this idea of a blowfish marketing plan. And Rocky will remember this, a blowfish. What does a blowfish do, Rocky?
It makes itself appear big.
It makes it itself appear much bigger than it actually is to scare off its competitors, right? And so this is the same idea with any startup, is you want a blowfish marketing plan with, as we've talked about already, with a highly engaged set of core target consumers who are going to be most motivated by what your brand promises. And then you want to make your brand appear bigger to those people, as big as it can possibly appear to them. That will fuel your business and turn those core users into influencers. The leadership style, obviously, participative, transactional, roll up your sleeves, get the necessary tasks done. So for startups, again, this idea of a blowfish marketing plan can make a huge difference. And so there you have it, right? You think about those 4 questions, right? What kind of brand are we? Where are we on that journey with consumers? Where are we relative to competitors? And what's our current business situation? If you can answer those 4 questions, then you know what your brand strategy has to be to grow your business. And at the end of the day, it's all about driving brand love, which drives more power in the marketplace, which puts more money in your pocket, plain and simple. So hopefully that makes sense, Rocky.
Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much. And
Sure.
just one last thing, if you were to give one last final lasting message or a piece of advice for people in the audience, what would it be? Their main takeaway.
Yeah, well, it would be 2. Number one, remember that your brand isn't what you say it is. Your brand is what others say it is, right? And so you always have to remember that. How is your brand perceived by others? If you remember that one thing, it's going to help you create the right marketing strategies and tactics to drive your business forward. So you got to think about, how do I want my brand to be perceived by others? And you've got to do that first, answer that question first, and then create marketing strategies and tactics to make sure that that is actually how people perceive you. And guess what? That applies to your personal brand as well.
All right. Big thanks to you, Mr. Taylor, for coming on. And if you guys want to check him out, I'll link his LinkedIn, his socials, and his personal website in the description. If you guys are interested in learning more about marketing concepts like these, check out our free marketing course link below, where we'll have lessons like this, case studies, and more interviews just like these. Till next time, Rocky out. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the MZM Masterclass podcast. Today, I'll be joined by Mr. Aaron Ushia, partner and head of content at Mad Mango Marketing. In this episode, Aaron and I will be covering all the basics about search engine optimization that small business owners need to know to begin ranking higher on Google and improving their organic web traffic. So without further ado, Aaron, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, sure. As you mentioned, my name's Aaron Ushia. I'm a partner at Mad Mango Marketing. We're an SEO firm. Originally got started in Connecticut, now based in Florida, helping typically small to medium-sized businesses rank for their services that they provide on Google.
Yes, that's great. So first, I guess, just could you tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are today? Where'd you go to college? What did you study? And what did your career path look like to take you to your position currently at Mad Mango?
Yeah, so I went to Clemson University and got a business management degree there. I always knew that I was going to be doing something entrepreneurial. So it was pretty much just going for the degree and the connections and the experience. And then I knew that when I got out of school, I'd go start something myself. And so I had a buddy who he didn't go to college. He took out a loan to buy 2 tractor trailers. And during those 4 years, he grew his business. So when I got out of school, he needed basically an office partner. So I partnered with him. That was my first experience owning a small business. We did that for about a year or two. He continues to run that business to this day, but I stepped aside. And as I saw more and more opportunity in the marketing space, I had actually some neighbors who were from India. They had a big office back in India, and they were looking for small businesses to build websites for, do SEO for. They recruited me as a salesperson. So that helped transition me away from like the trucking business, which was my first business, into digital marketing. And then I just learned everything from them. And I saw SEO as a service that we could offer without having a ton of development knowledge, as I'm more of a salesperson, marketing person than a dev. So we saw just a nice opportunity in SEO over like website building or even Google or Facebook ad management. So that's what we went with.
That's great. That's great. Is there a particular reason that you chose to specialize in SEO and in particular, I guess, becoming the head of content as opposed to other aspects of marketing and SEO as a whole?
Yeah, so we chose SEO as a whole because clients that opt for SEO packages are usually more concerned with the long-term picture of their business, because SEO is something that doesn't happen overnight. It's not a press of a button or a typing of a few keywords on a page. It takes a commitment to really making your business well-rounded on the internet. So we found that the clients that were interested in SEO were just better clients in general. So that was the biggest reason. Another reason that I mentioned in the previous answer was that we aren't developers or techie per se, and SEO is really just about making your website an information hub for your customer or user. And that's something that anybody can do if they have a content focus. And so when you look at the SEO stack and what it entails, content is a giant piece of it. The other big piece that we focus on at Mad Mango is the backlink building portion, the white hat backlink building. So we just saw a clear delineation between the two and saw that they were both going to need a big time commitment. So we basically divided up the company where one partner focuses on the content and has a team of writers under me, essentially. And then my partner drives the backlink building efforts, and he has a team under him. And then we're able to just make it all work that way. So that's why I'm focused on content and why we chose SEO.
Great, great. So speaking about these components of SEO, let's get into what SEO is actually for the people at home. So I guess my question for you is, what are the foundational principles of SEO, and why would it be crucial for small business owners to know about it?
Yeah, we kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but SEO stands for search engine optimization. So for anybody who doesn't know what the acronym stands for, it's simply optimizing your website to be understood by search engines. So that's the SEO. And it's important for any business owner because, as we all know in our own internet usage, ads are pretty annoying. And SEO is a marketing tactic that you still have to pay for like an ad, but it's presented to the user in an organic fashion. So it's presented to the user in almost a word of mouth more sense than a paid ad in your face. When you see someone's earned that top ranking on Google, there's automatically a slight increase in trust. So we help you get there. And then also another benefit that we see on our end is that the SEO visitor is spending 2 to 3 times the amount of time on site than the ad visitor, because you're getting a lot of clicking around and shopping for the ads versus just investigation with SEO research.
Essentially, for some clarification for the people at home, whenever you search anything up, there's going to be a list of websites that come up on Google or wherever, whatever search engine, and SEO just helps to push your website to the top of that list. And So next, let's talk about the components of SEO. So what do you think would be the top three factors that most significantly influences a website's ranking on Google search results?
Yeah. So there's typically three pillars of SEO that you can divide the service up into. The first and most basic is the technical side. So is your website easily found by Google? Is it easily read by Google? Those are two of the most important things, because if Google can't find your website or read it, it can't rank it. So there's something called making sure that your website's indexed through Google Search Console. That's a free service that you can basically upload your sitemap to, and Google will understand your website that way if things are properly set up. So that's the base, just making sure that that's taken care of. Then from there, we focus on content creation, because again, Google has to first find your site, then they read your site. So if you take care of the technical side and Google can find your site, that's great. But if they find your site and there's no content on it, no information on it, they're not going to know what services to rank your business for. It's just going to be another website that ranks on the 10th page of a Google search. And so the next most important thing, and really what you spend months and months and years building up, is a content hub on your website, so that a customer can come to your site and learn every single thing, every single step of the process about becoming your customer, before, during, or after. And then the third piece, after you've built up your website with a ton of rich content, video, images, is then reaching out to other websites in a process called backlink building, where you get other websites to link to your website. You may be reading a news article and you see a word with a hyperlink on it that links to another website. That's a backlink. So when Google crawls and reads that article, they see the word that links to your website. They take that word or those words as direction on what each piece of content is about, and they're able to basically assume trust from these other websites. If you're a small business in Greenwich, Connecticut, and you get the Greenwich newspaper to write an article about you, you're going to rank a lot higher in that town, because Google sees, hey, this trusted website that's been up for 30, 50, 100 years, whatever it may be, not 100 years, a website, but a newspaper, this trusted source talked about you. We're going to trust you now more for other searches. So technical SEO, content, and then backlinks are the three pillars in that order.
That's great. So now let's get into how small business owners would actually apply these principles to their own websites. So first, I guess, what would be the main pillar that a small business owner should start focusing on, and how should they go about doing it at the very basic level?
Yeah, so as I said, the first step is the technical SEO. So you need to make sure that your website is findable by Google. So you'll need to create a Google Search Console account. You'll connect your website and domain to that account. You'll upload your sitemap, which you can usually find with a plugin. If you're using a WordPress site, the Yoast plugin will generate a sitemap for you for free. It's a simple URL. It's usually your website / sitemaps -XML or something like that. You copy and paste that into Google Search Console, and they'll give you a report and tell you how many pages they can access, how many they can't, and you'll be able to see which pages are readable on your site. Sometimes your main service page may not be indexed on Google, and it's going to be difficult to rank that page. So that's step one. And it's pretty simple. Once it's indexed, it's indexed. It's most likely not going to become unindexed unless you do something that's maybe against Google's rules, or you take action to explicitly unindex your site. From there, it's really creating pages for each of your services individually. Let's say you offer maybe 4 major services from your business. If you list all 4 services on one page, Google will most likely never really rank you very high for anything, because when Google comes and reads the page, there's so much ancillary information that they may think the customer may get confused. They may be getting confused themselves. So creating dedicated pages for each of your services, and then blogging for each of those services based on the FAQs that you're fielding from your customers every day. So let's say, again, you offer 4 services. You create 4 service pages, and then maybe you gather the top 10 FAQs for each of those 4 services and you write a 500,000 word blog explaining that topic, or maybe even you shoot a video these days. It doesn't have to be writing. It could be a video that you then transcribe into a blog underneath it. And then from there, for the backlink building, that's the hardest part for business owners. Obviously, the content creation is typically the easiest. The backlink building just takes a constant reminder in the back of your head, like anybody that I'm working with that has a prominent website, I should ask them how we can get linked to from their website. So there's different ways to exchange value with websites. Sometimes you can write a blog for them. So let's say you work with a service provider, your marketing agency. You might say, hey, let me write a blog about how great it is to work with your piece of software or your company. And they'll take that blog and put it on their blog because they want to show their customers how happy they make other people. And then you'll get a link back from that service provider because you wrote the article for them and you gave them basically a free piece of content. There's a number of ways people go about it, but those are the basic things that a business owner can start with.
That's great. So I knew that another important part of SEO is keyword research. So how would small business owners effectively perform keyword research to target their specific audience?
Yeah, so listening to your customer is going to be the main tool to keyword research. These tools that exist on the internet, Ahrefs, SEMrush, they're great for doing that deep blog topic keyword research. But for like the keywords that are going to be placed on your service pages, you need to be talking to the customer like they're a human. You shouldn't be writing big blocks of paragraph text. You should be writing short sentences to the point, accompanied by images, and then speaking to them like you would speak to somebody in the store or over the phone, as direct as possible is what Google wants. Google doesn't want to serve a page with a bunch of fluff in it where you're stuffing keywords in a million places. They're pretty intelligent these days. They can tell if you're keyword stuffing. They want you to really create pages that are more useful than keyword based. It's important to remember that these tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush, they can only identify a keyword as popular after it's become popular and after it's been searched. So if you're on the forefront of your industry and you're talking to customers every day and you see something's up and coming, Ahrefs may not catch it as a popular keyword until 6 months later after all of your competitors have already created content about it. And so a lot of times the best keyword research is done in person, recording phone calls, recording emails, feeding them into some sort of tool that can extract commonly used phrases is almost better than trying to reverse engineer and stuff keywords in.
That's great. So it's important to always be listening to your customer for all parts of SEO as well. So lastly, let's get into how small business owners can measure and enhance SEO performance. And the first topic I'd like to touch on are SEO tools and analytics. So what tools and metrics should small business owners be using to track their SEO performance?
Yeah, so small businesses that are looking for a simple free tool, you really don't need more than Google Search Console and Google Analytics if you just want the basics to get your site on the Google index and then track where the traffic's coming from. Google Analytics will break down your traffic by ads, organic traffic, so you can track over time your organic traffic measures, your organic maybe lead conversions, because in Google Analytics you can set up different conversions for different goals you have on the website, and then you can see, are ad visitors converting more than organic visitors, who's spending the most time on site, who's visiting the most number of pages. You want to take it to the next level and do some more keyword research, as you said, and some more competitor research. You can opt for like a single site package on Ahrefs or SEMrush are usually still pretty affordable. Those are the two tools that pretty much everybody in the industry is using. So those are going to give you the best insights. A lot of good Google research comes from simply Googling what you wish to rank for one day and then analyzing why those pages are better than yours. So the big tools and purchasing all these software pieces is really something that should come later on once you really know what you're doing and you have a content plan and a backlink building plan. but those tools do offer some good insight as well.
So it sounds like SEO is pretty accessible for everyone, and you can get into it no matter what budget you have, which is great because some other marketing strategies and approaches take a lot more of resources that small business owners can't afford. So finally, let's get into the SEO pitfalls to avoid. So SEO, as we have all learned during this episode, is pretty complicated. So what are some common SEO mistakes that small businesses make, and how can they avoid them with this process?
Yeah, so getting off base from those three core tenets. 90% of the websites out there are not doing those three things good enough. If you're in a super competitive industry, that may not be the case. You may be in a space where all your competitors are doing good SEO and it's going to take just years based on the competition. But if you focus on the basics, if you focus on creating a single page for each of your services, if you focus on blogging those FAQs and then building backlinks as you can, you're going to eventually ascend to the top. It takes time. It's essentially, again, it's word of mouth. If someone were to come to you and say, hey, Rocky, I need a plumber, you're not going to recommend some guy that just opened up the doors a week ago because nobody knows the quality of his services versus somebody that's been in town, has reviews. It's the same thing for Google. You can get up that list a little bit quicker by building good backlinks, writing good content. But if you just take care of the basics of those two, content creation and backlink building, you're going to do oftentimes much more than your competition either way. It's just going to take, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months of consistently doing it every single month to prove to Google that you're worth that word of mouth. So it's just all about consistency. You don't need to do a lot. Most small businesses can build, 1 to 2 pieces of content a month, 1 to 2 backlinks every other month. And in a year, 2 years time, you're going to see yourself in the top 3 for a lot of local business searches. Now, of course, if your opportunity is national, it's different, as I said, but for local businesses, it just takes paying attention to the basics.
Now, thank you so much, Aaron, and thank you to everyone who is listening at home. If you'd like to learn more about him and his agency, you can check the links out in the description and subscribe for more. Thank you, everyone, and see you in the next interview. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the MZM Masterclass podcast. Today, I am joined by Mr. Andrew Moffat, CEO and co-founder of Curious Insight. In this episode, Mr. Moffat and I will be covering all the basics about consumer insights that small business owners need to know to begin understanding their target audience. Would you like to introduce yourself for everyone?
Sure. Thanks, Rocky, for having me on. So as Rocky said, I'm the CEO of Curious Insight. Been running my own company, I guess, for the past 3.5 years. And before that, spent almost 20 years at what's now one of the largest kind of data collection firms and research in the world. It's called Dynata, formerly SSI, based in Connecticut, close to where you are.
Yep. So I guess let's talk about how you got to where you are today with Curious Insight. When did you guys start? When did you start growing, and where are you right now?
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, we started 3.5 years ago, and I started it with a couple of folks that had worked with me in the previous company for over 10 years,
Wow.
And when we were there, we did a lot of work globally, helping companies like Nielsen. Who most companies are familiar with. They do a lot of media ratings and tell people what people watch on TV and things like that. So I had my job was to actually manage them as a client all over the world. So I got to learn how the largest research firm in the whole world kind of operates and what makes them great. So that's where a lot of our learnings for what we're doing today actually came from.
So what does Curious Insight specialize in specifically? Like, what are your guys' main offerings, and why?
Yeah.
And why do you do what you do?
Yeah, so today we focus on behavioral insights and behavioral research. And what that means specifically, and I guess why it's different from most stuff that's out there, is it's only on collecting people's behaviors passively on their phones and on their desktops and things like that. So rather than, say, developing a survey and asking people questions and hopefully they tell you the truth, which, or they remember what they did, instead we've kind of reframed how, I won't even say surveys, but say research in general should be done by being able to track a large audience of people passively and be able to see things like what apps they're using and what websites they're going to and what they're searching for on their devices, or what they're shopping for on Amazon, what they're watching on Netflix, or what ads they actually click on and enjoy and end up engaging with. And so it kind of moves away from this question-based model where you're asking people to join a panel to take lots of questions and tell you more about who they are, so companies can create better products or evolve products better, to just observing people and then engaging with them if you see interesting behavior. So rather than asking someone, hey, how many times you used Instagram last week, you'll know exactly how many times and how many hours, and you can ask them, hey, why did you use Instagram more than TikTok? Because you know more about what they're up to.
Yeah, so why is it crucial for small businesses in particular to understand consumer behavior? And where does all of these behavioral insights that you just mentioned come into play when you're thinking about impacting marketing outcomes?
Yeah, so for small businesses, we can help them see what's trending. We can help them see what's happening within their category or within their market at scale, especially with what the market leaders are doing and what's selling potentially, or what advertising or what messaging or what offers are appealing to people real time, versus having to go out and build out a list of people and try to find the right people to talk to. It's a more simplified way of just getting to the insights and audience that you're looking to get. And where, from a marketing perspective, we have some really unique offerings, because we can see things like any ad that you saw on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, or probably not on Facebook, or a Snapchat or somewhere like that, and see if you actually go and engage with that brand after you see that ad. And if you did engage with that ad, what was the caption? Yeah. What were they kind of putting in front of you? And the beauty of behavioral is that that data is being collected all the time. Yeah. It's available real time, versus having to think of what to do and then go out and again find that audience and do some research with them. But in this case, that people saw an ad, exactly what they're doing, and this kind of visibility into marketing is different, because it opens the eyes not just to what you're doing, but you actually get to see what your competitors are doing and see where they're spending their money, what social platforms they're actually advertising on, or where they're spending their ad dollars at the end of the day.
And you're also seeing what the customer sees, right? And what they're engaging with and what's working well, so you can optimize your campaigns that way. So are you guys
exactly so like you can show from an omni-channel perspective as well, and see, hey, they saw an ad on TikTok, but then they showed up at a McDonald's because they saw an ad on TikTok, and you can start attributing kind of advertising actions to outcomes in much deeper ways.
Yeah. So are you guys currently working with any small businesses at Curious Insight? And if so, like, how are they using your offerings, and what kind of success have they had so far, I guess?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of smaller research agencies, for sure. So in that case, what we're bringing to them is the ability to find audiences a lot easier. So if you think about that example, right? So you want to find someone who shops for shampoo, right? We can actually go find those people, identify them. And I think that's one part of the equation. It's like making a more kind of like a better match between the user and say a survey, because you can hyper target them that much better. But the products that we've created connecting to surveys are what's changed things. So we can now append behavioral data to a data set so that you can take a survey and then create a media plan from the outcome of that survey, because the media habits of that set of users that like your product, or you can start to learn like hobbies and interests that we derive from people's behaviors or their news consumption or whatever might be of interest to you. So helps you more in terms of like how you acquire the audience, who is this audience, how should you be messaging them, where should you be reaching them, and the behaviors of people illuminate kind of all those journeys for you.
Mm-hmm. So you've already kind of touched on this, but how would you say that small business owners could begin to implement this behavioral targeting into their own businesses? Is there any way for them to do it themselves, or would it be best for them to work with a firm like yours?
Well, so you can collect behavioral data on your own people. There are tools out there to, collect clickstream data if you have a website, or to give you your own information on your customers. It's really just understanding that journey a little bit more. We do have the ability in a couple of ways to help people create this data for themselves. If you have a mobile app, we have an SDK or piece of technology that you could put into your app that would actually start collecting this data on your people. So in that sense, you would know everything that's happening within your app, and our technology would allow you to see everything that's happening outside of your app. So we would track every other app interaction, every other website visit, every other search, or other behaviors that you might want to see. We can enable that for anyone who's an app owner. Or if you have an audience that you want to create, we have white label apps. We can help people kind of curate and build audiences, be it behavioral or not.
So finally, I wanted to touch on how small business owners can measure the impact of these different behavioral insights and their overall successes. So what tools and techniques can they use to measure the impact, I guess, of these marketing strategies that are driven by these behavioral insights?
Yeah, so it's kind of back to what I was talking about earlier in terms of like seeing an ad and then seeing the outcome of that ad, right? So, so we're doing some of that today just through just advertising effectiveness. How many times do you need to expose someone to an ad? What are your competitors doing in that sense? But we're also looking at kind of newer creative ways to see other communication points from a brand. So things like notifications on your phone, like are they driving behaviors in different ways? Or email communication, being able to see a brand emailing you, and then are you then looking at like clicking and going to that brand's website? And so it's trying to find, I think there's two parts, like what are the ways that brands or small business owners are trying to communicate with their actual audience, right? Whether it's through push notifications, whether it's through ads, whether it's through email notifications or whatever that is. And then how do you kind of measure success by just engaging with your category, engaging with your product, or engaging with your brand post exposure, and being able to measure that passively is what we offer, which is kind of neat.
So essentially you take a look at all the different touch points, am I getting that correct, that a brand or a business has with their consumer, and then how that ends up turning into conversions?
Exactly. Okay. And so we're building out both sides of that right now, right? So one side is right now we have kind of all of your ad exposure. As I said, we're testing out other things like notifications or things like that, right? That are other ways in which you try to communicate with that user. And then the outcomes are today, did you buy? Did you engage? Did you use the app? Did you show up in person? but we're looking into other things like, if you connect accounts, then you get like historical information on people. You start to know more about things, right? And so that gives you more outcome data, right, that you can start to measure against. And so I think it's an always evolving kind of area. But I think today the whole idea is that all of our measurement is done without asking questions of people. Definitely. And it's all done in a way that doesn't require any cookies.
Yeah.
So we're doing this, we're seeing the ads, we're measuring impact, and we're doing that without any cookies being around at all, which is important given where the world of marketing is going.
It's very precise, but it's very unobtrusive, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
So finally, can you discuss some examples? I guess you already touched on in the past, but some examples of successful and unsuccessful applications of these behavioral insights?
So maybe start with the unsuccessful. Like sometimes it's hard, especially if it's small business, because you might not have a large enough audience that engages with that we can track, right? So often for small business owners, looking at maybe the largest competitors in that space, or maybe the category at large, might be a better view than say that brand if it's not that big. So because we track 100,000 people in the United States today, so by the time you get to maybe a smaller brand, that becomes hard. But we can certainly see things as they're happening, and we can see organically things growing. So things like one example would be we did some research on new Samsung devices as they're coming out, right? And so being able to see the device passively, seeing people converting over, then being able to measure back and see where people came from, what device they moved from, and things like that. That's all really cool kind of use cases of what we'd be able to do in that sense. So.
Great. So that's going to be it for us today. Thank you, Mr. Moffat, for joining me on today's episode. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. If you guys like to learn more about him and his work, I'll put some links in the description. Is that okay? Yeah. I'll put some links in the description so you guys can check him out. And I'll see you guys all in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the MZM Masterclass podcast. Today I'm joined by Ramon Peralta, founder and CEO of Peralta Design. In this episode, Mr. Peralta and I will be covering all the basics about launching a brand that entrepreneurs and small business owners need to know to get theirs off the ground. Mr. Peralta, would you like to introduce yourself for everyone?
Yes, sure. Thank you for having me, first of all. My name is Ramon Peralta. I'm the founder, and I'm also creative director at Peralta Design, a digital marketing agency where our slogan is, "We launch brands."
That's amazing. So I guess before we get started, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself? How did you get to where you are today? How did you found your company, and what did you do to get there?
Yeah, sure, man. I am what you would call a reluctant entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is I never set out to start a company. I was always an employee first. And I think I always had my design business, if you will, as a side hustle. So I've worked in a number of places, the newspaper. I was most famously on the team that started Priceline.com back in 1998. I've had stints at some direct mail marketing agencies as well. And I always kind of did my flyer design, graphic design, logo design on the side. Always had a computer at home, and kind of never saw myself as being a business owner per se full time, because I always was after that steady paycheck, and in 2008, when the recession hit and the market crashed, I was at Walker Digital, which was the incubator that created Priceline. And I had been working there for 10 years after Priceline launched in 98, starting multiple startup companies and being on the team that handled the creative and the branding. And I found myself laid off. And I had a 6-month severance package, which equates to 6 months salary. And it was a very difficult time to find employment, which was my first instinct. And so after some soul searching, I realized that maybe this was all a blessing, in disguise, and that maybe my purpose was to help other people launch their businesses. I felt that there were probably a lot of people in my shoes that were displaced from their employment, that had a lot of experience and that needed to start their own business and didn't know how. So I took my knowledge and my skills that I had learned on the job of how to launch a company quickly, and I gave birth to Peralta Design, where we launch brands.
That's amazing. So, Mr. Peralta, you specialize in branding, is that correct?
Yes.
And so throughout this episode, as I mentioned, we're going to be covering all the basics that you guys need to know about branding and how you can also launch your brands just like Mr. Peralta does. So for the first topic, I wanted to cover just the fundamentals of branding, like what it is. And I guess my question for you is, what is branding? Why is it crucial for small business owners to have a brand?
Right. And it's crucial because right now it is the consistent branding is actually the fastest way to differentiate yourself from your competitors. People aren't going to read. They're not going to sit through a video. They're not going to listen to your sales pitch. So you need to come up with a way to be memorable, repeatable, recognizable. And oftentimes it's using a consistent iconography or symbol for your business, having a memorable and repeatable slogan for your business, having a corporate color palette, and then making sure that that is being consistently communicated across multiple consumer touch points. So, branding, I would say, arguably is more important than ever. In fact, Jeff Bezos is famous for saying that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Mm-hmm. So, you have to be known for something. And I think a common mistake many entrepreneurs make is they try to do everything for everyone, and then you don't really stand out. So I would advise people to be very niche in the beginning, target a very specific audience with a very specific service, and start small. And remember that simple scales.
So I know you kind of touched on this in the last answer, but like what are the top 5 things that go into a successful brand identity? Is it just your logo and your colors, or is it something deeper than that?
Yeah, I think it's very important to, when you're considering the name of your business, if that's your starting point, to realize that your official business name on your LLC or on your corporation does not have to actually be the consumer-facing brand. So, for example, for Peralta Design, or PD as we call it, that's the consumer-facing brand. People know us by the PD logo. In fact, I don't know if this is going to be on video, but
yeah.
You can see that there's an icon there. And I recommend all businesses, as part of their branding, along with a typographical brand, have an iconic brand, and also have an acronym for their business. We're seeing a trend towards debranding. Willis Tower Watson is now WTW. Weight Watchers is now WW. The World Wrestling entertainment is WWE. So everything has been distilled down to an acronym, and that's our vernacular right now in today's society. Is we don't say the whole name. Everything's TTYL, BRB, OMW, LOL, right? So you have to have a distilled down acronym for your brand. You also need to have an iconic representation for your brand that can be used on merch. People love merch. They love swag. Any business right now that you see is going to have gear, whether it's for employee morale or it's for corporate gifts, or it's for their social media, because you're competing with a very small real estate on a screen, right? Mm-hmm. So everything on your phone is tiny. So you're using, you're oftentimes finding, that you need an iconic representation for that small real estate, especially on social media.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So let's transition towards how we can begin developing these different brand elements and the overall brand strategy. So how can a small business owner define and develop a clear and compelling brand identity?
Yes. So once you have the name of your business down, I think it's important to think of the psychology behind colors. because you do need a corporate color palette that's going to be consistent throughout all of your communication. Imagine bumping into somebody and they drop all of their sales material. You drop all of yours. If your corporate colors are green and theirs are blue, you should be able to collect all of your collateral, if you think of that as a metaphor. The same goes for online. I mean, look at the golden arches. No matter where you go in the world, if you see the golden arches, you know what that cheeseburger is going to taste like, right? There's a consistency and there's an experience that's associated with it. In some cases, a flavor or a smell or a feeling. So, right? So you want to evoke an emotional response with your branding. Having an icon is important. Having a set color palette that has a psychology to it. For example, if you're in finance, you see a lot of companies using green or blue because they evoke trust. If you're in a very competitive market like we are in advertising, we chose red because red is the combination of all colors, and it's the color that's used to get people's attention the most. Right? But you need to find a color that appeals to your audience. So any good brand strategy is going to begin by really having a clear picture of who your ideal buyer is, or I would call it a buyer avatar, right? So spend some time thinking about who would be my best client. Are they old? Are they young? Are they male? Are they female? And that will give you some clues as to how you should communicate to them. For example, if your audience is older people, using a small point size font or using, imagery that is, I would say, very playful or cartoonish might not work with senior citizens, for example, that come from a different generation. Whereas if you're appealing to young people, maybe having something that is brighter and has a mascot or it looks very digital or might be animated, that might appeal to a younger demographic. So your font selection, is it a serif font? Is it a sans serif font? All of that aligns with your brand personality and your brand identity, which should appeal to your target audience and help you stand out amongst your competition. So do some competitive market research, see what your competitors are doing, follow your competitors on social media, look to see what gets the most engagement for them. You may have clues there, and absolutely look at the data. As you start to experiment with your brand, do a survey, get some feedback, ask your customers, what do they think? And you'll find a lot of valuable data when you listen to your target audience as well.
So are there any specific tools or like pieces of software that you would recommend someone who's just starting out?
Absolutely. I'm assuming a lot of folks listening to your podcast are going to be early stage startups or do-it-yourself type folks that don't have, the resources to just hire an agency like ours and say, hey, just run with this. I would recommend my book, which is available at launchyourbrandbook.com. It has a lot of tips in there for those folks that are starting out. We actually like Canva. I think Canva has come a really long way. It's very user-friendly. You can create some templates in it because, again, consistency is key. People aren't always going to read your content, but if they see that it's in the same format, that it always uses the same font, that it always uses the same color, that your logo is in the exact same place on every piece of content, that you use the exact hashtag, that your slogan's repeatable, then it starts to click, and then you start getting on their radar. If you use a different template every day, you might as well be starting over every day with your brand. You're never going to get that momentum. And Canva has some really good tools that will allow you to create some templates. We also like software like scheduling software like Later or Hootsuite that would allow you to schedule these posts so that you hit all the major retail holidays if you're a retail brand, if you're a B2B, if your clients are other businesses, then you need to have content scheduled for LinkedIn. If you're more of a consumer brand, you want to be on Facebook. If you're targeting a younger audience, you might consider TikTok, right? So understanding what platform are your customers on, and then using these software that are out there like Canva, Later, The Adobe Suite is also excellent. CapCut is excellent if you're creating video content. All very user friendly, and just kind of go out there. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Start putting out content, get feedback. If something gets a lot of likes, then do more of that. If something doesn't get a lot of engagement, don't do that, right? So look at the data, look at the engagement levels, and have fun with it.
So once small business owners have finally found that core brand identity, they've got that style guide, they got everything that they need. Does it just end there, or are there next steps? How can they continue to